Thank you for thank you for sticking around for the last but the most important panel. I promise you, this is going to lead into tomorrow's discussion because we start tomorrow with the the trajectory of this discussion. So I'd like to get yourselves introduced first and a little bit of background, and then I think you'll probably draw the lines of the work that's going on. So Carrie, we'll probably start with you, and then Tina and Carrie.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dr. Carrie Turner Gray. I am, so my background is not in cyber, it is in education and business, but I was asked in July to fill a position that was open for the Cyber P-Tech at Sam Houston High School. So I am currently the coordinator director of the Cyber P-Tech at Sam Houston High School. And what a P-Tech is a Pathways of Technologies early college high school where the students earn an associate's degree as they are earning their high school diploma. And I don't know if you remember earlier, but all the kids at the front tables, those are some of my kids that attend our school. About 38 of them came, and we currently have enrollment of 156.
Hello, I'm Tina Moore. I am the director of the STEM and Computer Science Continuum for the Arkansas Department of Education. And my position would make a little more sense once you hear about Kelly's position, but my position was added just a little over a year ago to complement the K-12 Computer Science Initiative for our state and to ensure that students are leaving K-12 and pursuing STEM and computer science career paths, cybersecurity being one of them. And so I work to connect stakeholders across agencies and across sectors from K-12, higher ed, and workforce, and work with government agencies, education folks, nonprofits, everyone in the different spaces that may lead to career advancement in those fields.
Excellent. Kelly?
Hi, I'm Kelly Griffin. I'm with the Arkansas Department of Education. I am the State Director of Computer Science Education, so K-12. I have a team of about 10 specialists that work within the state, and our role is to work with teachers and students across the state in computer science, and a portion of that is cybersecurity.
Excellent. Thank you for your background. I think, maybe Kelly, we just start with you, with, following that introduction about the work that you're doing on the science legislation side. And we'll probably address it in two ways, because I think all of these are fairly new. Some of these go back to the STEM background, but getting cyber and STEM integrated and then going through a legislative process, implementing it is a journey, right? So can you talk a little about your program?
In 2015, Governor Asa Hutchinson began a computer science initiative in Arkansas, and he signed Act 187, which required all high schools to offer a computer science course. At that point, there were very few across the state that even offered it, and there were maybe 1,100 students in the state that were taking a computer science course. And so over the last several years, that has been a steady increase. And in this past year, he signed Act 414, which actually requires that this year's ninth graders will be required to have a graduation requirement. So there's a lot that led to that in between there, where it began with just making sure that all of our students had access, and then working towards training teachers, which is what I mentioned earlier. That was part of our role, making sure we had the certified teachers and those that had the knowledge to offer those courses within our high schools across the state.
Well, and I think, that gives a dimension of from the legislative side. And when you turn that into, the work that you're doing in terms of building that ecosystem, supporting the, the vision to actually execution and implementation. So your thought, can you give a little background of your program and how does they do the work together?
Sure. So I know there are not a ton of people left because it's late in the day, but could you raise your hand if you work in education? Okay. All right. Raise your hand if you work in business and industry. All right. Any government agency folks? Just a few? Okay. I promise that each of you have your own little secret jargon talk. Okay. You all have your own acronyms that the other people do not even know what the heck you're talking about when you start talking. You have processes and procedures. If we even divided up and said, who of the educators, who's K-12 and who's higher ed, you do completely different things, and you are not familiar often with what is happening in the other person's world. And if we looked even among our own institutions, if you work at a high school, you might not even know what's happening at the high school down the road, because we just work in silos, but especially the silos of education, business, industry. We want to partner, and some are doing a really great job partnering, but my role has really been to develop an ecosystem, and that's been a primary focus. We have something that we are calling the Arkansas Data Science and Computing Ecosystem that includes a major focus on cybersecurity as one of the elements, as well as data science. We have pulled together partners from all those sectors that I mentioned, and we've had a few statewide meetings. We had a few regional meetings. Arkansas is a much smaller state than Texas. I know everything's bigger in Texas. Um, we visited a school in San Antonio while we were here, and we were shocked to hear how many students they had, because it was like 3 times as many as our largest school district in Arkansas. So as an ecosystem for the whole state, it's doable because we're such a small state. And that's really helping break down some barriers and make sure that our higher ed folks actually know what Kelly's folks are doing, because they didn't. They knew there's some governor's computer science initiative. They didn't know what the students were learning, and they were blown away when they found out that high school students could graduate with all these certifications and really recognized industry credentials in those fields. So that's some of the work we're doing with the ecosystem, is just really trying to make sure that everyone knows what's going on and what each other's doing.
Well, I think we are all conceptually doing the same thing. When you talk about silos within the different sectors, and if you think about the silos within an organization, there's probably we have to see how we can bring those learnings from each other. So, but definitely a great problem that, from admiration to solution, we're looking for some action. So thank you for that, Tina. Carrie, again, I think you had your advisory meeting just yesterday or this week, earlier this week. In your years in this journey and in your tenure of this PTech program, what has been main focus, and how have you been, kind of moving forward with the program?
My main focus is to create the future leaders in cybersecurity, and that's what I try to do every single day, whether it's working with industry partners to understand what the kids need in terms of education, certifications, pretty much whatever it is that industry is focusing on here in San Antonio, because we want our kids to leave our program and be able to go out and get a job as soon as they graduate high school. Our kids will graduate with a level 1 certificate, along with CompTIA ITF Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, and A Plus are the 4 that we have focused on so far. And then along with the associate's degree, moving into a 4-year program typically, which we're planning to start supporting for year 13-14 with our district. So once the kids graduate, we'll support them for year 13-14 by providing books, tuition, all of those things until they get a bachelor's degree within 2 years, if it happens. And part of that is, like they said in Arkansas, Texas has decided that degrees in technology and jobs in technology are of utmost importance. And so that is why P-Techs were created. We have P-Techs all over San Antonio. I'm proud to say that Sam Houston has the first cyber P-Tech, and we will be graduating seniors this year with associate's degrees. It's just really exciting to be able to keep up with an industry that is so important to every single career field. And that's what I work on every day.
Well, I think, it's basically making sure that we start early in the journey for that process, right? And if I compare the 2 different environments, also the scope of work you're doing, I think there's quite a bit of learning from each other, right? A statewide initiative, and then implementation of the initiatives, takes a statewide initiative that you are doing. Kelly, if I may start with you, in terms of the legislative action or even, a framework, what are you thinking are the basic components that we could take and just drive to the industry for adoption? Because ultimately it will be the industry and then of course the state workforce and then this federal workforce. There are different career pathways in different sectors. Do you look at it? Are you looking at a framework that's applicable to all, or anything specific?
So we do have several different sets, we have standards that we've put together, and we've worked with our teachers to provide professional development. So part of the team that I work with creates and provides those professional developments. And then, of course, we've worked, along with Tina as far as trying to set up some of those paths into industry, into those post-secondary pathways as well. So for a lot of hours, it is trying to build the capacity of, those certified teachers, and then provide that training, and then help them connect as well, with the industry and post-secondary.
Got it. And does that equate to any of the silos you're trying to break? Any specific area that you highlight where you see the biggest challenge?
Well, one thing, I've been going around our state talking with superintendents and school leadership at the K-12 level and trying to get the message out about the IT workforce. And I share with them that in prior years, the traditional definition of the STEM workforce were those with at least a bachelor's degree pursuing yada, 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 certain fields. And beginning in 2021, the National Science Foundation changed that definition to be anyone, regardless of their education level, working in science and engineering fields. So that goes with IT, that when we're developing our future workforce, the paradigm of everyone needs to pursue a four-year degree in college is no longer the case, especially with IT. Like my doctor, I still want my doctor to pursue more than a short apprenticeship or more than a boot camp training. But when you're looking at IT, there are so many routes. And when we look at cybersecurity and we look at, the NICE framework and look at the 52 different work roles in cyber, there are so many ways to get there. So part of that silo is getting that message out, because K-12 people, they don't know that. Now, people like us, we know that in K-12, but the general administration in K-12, the general K-12 teacher doesn't know that. The parents don't know that. And then our four-year institutions, many of them are, of course, naturally trying to pursue students that are wanting a four-year degree. So having to make sure that people know about the apprenticeship opportunities, our states really raise the noise level about apprenticeships for cybersecurity. We have the Forge Institute, which is a training provider in our state that is partnering with the Arkansas Center for Data Science, which is an apprenticeship intermediary, working with our Department of Labor folks there in Arkansas. And so it's taken so many different players to come together to make it happen, to change. It's not just go to school, graduate, go get your four-year degree. There are so many different career pathways. So part of that ecosystem is just making sure people are aware of those different opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about career pathways, I think, there are not only career pathways for the traditional like K through 12, there are transitions also, right, that I think needed to be considered. So coming back to the PTech program, it's meant to be a pathways program. So where do you see the most successful elements in this framework that you are following and are currently implementing?
I think we see the most success in getting the students out into industry and having them work with people like Accenture, and which is a big company here, or Arctic Wolf, or any of those big organizations. They even worked in our district offices. And that's been probably the most valuable experience that the students have had, along with their learning that they do with our partner with Alamo Community College District. They're really focused on advancing IT in their various programs, and they have large centers in each of their schools that look to promote that across all of San Antonio. So looking forward and seeing what the kids can do, we just want to make sure that they're achieving whatever level that they want to be at, but we're supporting them through an associate's and then through a bachelor's if they would like. They don't have to do that. We're just offering it. Also, with the industry-based certifications, I really feel that they find value with those, especially when they're talking to people in industry and to their mentors, and their mentors are, oh, I'm studying for that, exam to renew it as well. And so they can work together to study for the exams that are coming up.
I think that's pairing up, and that's a great model, right? I think This gives you the company that you can like probably follow, a good example to lead up to. And when you prepare for a test, preparing alone is never a good idea. So I love the model. In the next kind of round, let's talk about a little bit of outcomes that you are looking at and the time frame. So in your case, okay, what do you think are the desired outcomes, and what kind of time frame are you looking at to achieve?
So our desired outcomes is to have every kid college and career ready, which is a big push for Texas. They start their college courses in ninth grade in the spring. And by the time they graduate as a senior, they should have an associate's degree. Throughout that time, we want to make sure that they receive their level 1 certification, which is about 30 college hours, and also take their CompTIA certifications as they go through each class. So when they're taking a security class, they'll do security plus. When they're taking a networking class, they'll do networking plus. And that is our desired outcomes. Does every student get an associate's degree? No. Some leave with just level 1, or some leave with just an IBC, an industry-based certification, but that it depends on where they're going. So we have about a 50% attrition rate with students leaving the program due to various reasons, leaving the school. COVID made it very hard for us to keep kids, and the classes are very hard to take online. So I can't even tell you, out of the 40 kids we had that started routers online, how many of them dropped it? Probably 35. Dropped that one course because
you're in physical access, and
right.
You're not going to ship routers to everybody's home to configure. So.
Exactly. So that was a huge thing with trying to get the students where they needed to be, is trying to get them hands-on equipment. We actually just received a grant that will be redoing our entire P-Tech program to bring it all up to date with network racks and routers and a SOC, a networking lab. And so we're very excited about that, to bring, to have everything at the level of the college level. So, but the other thing that, if I could just talk about a challenge, we have a challenge finding teachers that are qualified to teach our program. So they have to be able to have enough education to be able to teach at the college level as adjunct to be dual credit teachers, or the students have to actually be bused to a campus to take the classes. So,
and that's kind of a technical requirement because you need to have a standard, right?
Right. So it is, I'm sure all of you know that you make more money being out in IT than you do being in the classroom. I am a former CPA, and I left the classroom only because of personal reasons. And I mean, I left industry to go to the classroom for personal reasons. But it was, it was kind of a big pay cut. So you have to really love education in order to go there.
Absolutely. And it's a purpose and a mission that we're fulfilling.
Right.
Thank you for this. Tina, how about what kind of outcomes are you looking for? I mean, silo breaking is a really, visionary thing, but I am sure you have specific outcomes that you're looking for. So from your side.
Sure. And, everything that I'm doing builds on the work that's starting with what Kelly's doing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to punt to her first to talk about the K-12 outcomes, and then I'll piggyback on that. The outcomes that you've achieved and want to achieve for cybersecurity.
So for most of our students, having access to a computer science course was not something made available to them until the last 3 years. And so ADE has partnered with University of Arkansas Little Rock and another corporation to develop some of the curriculum for those students, to make sure that we have a viable program there that teachers can lean on and use in their classrooms. We've seen when I look at the number of students that are taking these different courses, programming was one of our top, but cybersecurity is right up there towards the top as well. So we see the momentum there of where our students are not only having access, but that we are getting those students into the classroom. And our goal will be not only for them to take the year one, but to continue into those year 2 and 3 courses. So that's really where we're looking to not only get that student into that 1 year or that first year level, but how does that progress through? How do we connect them into the work that Tina's doing?
And then on my piece, we have a lot of programs around our state called secondary career centers that are at our 2-year institutions. I'm sure you have similar things here in Texas. and our high school students are bused over to the secondary career center because we have a lot of rural communities where there's no way they could offer some of these programs. Traditionally, they've been more like your welding, your HVAC, but the things that would be very expensive CTE type programs to have in your own building that the small schools just can't do. So part of my goal is to encourage more of them to offer cybersecurity and to see the need for that. Many of our rural communities, they don't see the need for that. They can rationalize, we need welders in our small community. They don't understand that they need to be training students to pursue cybersecurity. They often don't realize that some of these students could still live in your rural community and do remote work as a cybersecurity professional. I laughed because I did have a college administrator tell me that, well, there's just no need really for that in our area because our main business here is banking. And I was like, am I on candid camera? Did you really just say your main industry is banking and you don't need cybersecurity? So it shows the lack of awareness that many of our folks have. So for outcomes, I hope that more programs will be offered at the post-secondary level for students to earn concurrent credit. And then additionally, to connect pieces like the work at University of Arkansas, Little Rock, that Kelly mentioned, they also have a consortia that they're building around the state, partnering two-year institutions and four-year institutions for a shared curriculum on stackable credentials for cybersecurity that range from certificates to associate degrees to bachelor's degrees and graduate certificates, because our two-year institutions, they don't have the capacity to do it alone either. They are often taking people who were not computer science people who became cybersecurity people. They're taking business teachers who are now becoming cybersecurity people. And so they need support. They need the curriculum that can be shared among folks. There aren't enough people to teach it because once they get trained, as you know, they want to go to industry to make a little bit more money, just a little bit more. So it's really hard for the two-year institutions to have faculty. So they share faculty, and there's certain models we can do there. So that's my goal, is to increase the amount of programs beyond K-12, but also in the higher ed level.
Well, I think, what you just alluded to is a challenge that's across the industry, across all sectors. There is a interest and excitement about the cyber carriers, but again, it's like we are stealing from each other. As a TY, we got folks from Deloitte and Accenture come work for us, and then 2 years down the line, they're gone working for them back again. So this cycle, and in the education sector, I've seen, like, as teachers get to learn, they go from school to school, but also there is a university to university transition that's going on. So I think it's very systemic that we have to address, and that's why the cyber workforce development from ground up is probably the only choice we have in the long term, right? So let me come back to you, Carrie, in terms of the metrics that we can measure this into, right? Because I think you mentioned some of the numbers that of the attrition of the students that are happening, and which is in a very real scenario, like I would not want to be under the impression that if somebody's taking a networking class and they never had a hands-on experience with router, I would rather know exactly what the attrition is rather than just assume that they got learned something. So what kind of metrics are you following? The continuity of the class, the increase in the class size. How do you
So we follow what Alamo Community College District tells us to follow. And we crosswalk the classes back to what our classes are on our campus. So the classes can be taught on our campus one of two ways, either by a certified teacher on my campus that has been that can teach dual credit for computer science or networking, et cetera, or by the faculty at the college. So there's two ways that when we do it both ways. We're very lucky that some of the stuff that you're working on, they've done for us. St. Philip's and SAC have gone to UTSA and UIW, and they've worked to make a 2+2 program, so that once they finish our program, they just automatically go into UTSA and all those credits transfer. And the same thing with UIW. They currently have our crosswalk, and they're working on doing the same thing so that any student that we want to support can go to UIW if they choose. And then Texas A&M has done the same thing. But all of that has been done by the community college and the four-year institution. So I haven't had to do much of anything besides, provide the information that they need. But basically, we take the courses that are listed just like a college student would take, and we try to make sure that they are in an order that makes sense for our students. Not always the order that St. Philip's would have them go at, but at the order that we think they'll learn enough to be able to go in. Our main problem with attrition is that it's hard. So they, they get to see that there's culinary over down the street and they get to make cookies and eat them. And then there's health science and they're doing blood drives and, practicing on cute little dummies or whatever, or, veterinary science or cosmetology. And it's kind of hard to convince them at the age they're at, but when they're in 8th grade, when we start to try to get them in, that this is what they want to do. So we use things like esports and cyber patriots and robotics and all of those things to get kids to come in, but that doesn't mean that they're going to stay long term. Which is, I don't know how many people, how many of you out there changed your major when you got to college? Because I did about 3 times, and it's basically the same thing. They want to change their major, and they're now into nursing or whatever it is.
So. Well, I think what we just call attrition is, I think, is a process of natural selection. Cyber needs a little bit of more endurance, and you see that like in kids early. But of course, once they have the exposure, maybe 3 years down the line when they go to the undergrad program or go to the graduate program or work in the workforce and they come back and pick up cyber. But I think it's fundamental that foundational that we get them exposed to this, which is where I think the biggest value is, right? If I may go to, both of you, Kelly and Tina, in terms of the metrics that you are focusing on and what you want to drive, like, you can't have everything, so you have to choose certain priorities. So how are you prioritizing those metrics?
Well, one thing I want to say that I know that we all believe this and do this with everything, but just want to be like very explicit and intentional to call it out is, and I'm sure it's part of your metrics as well, is ensuring that underrepresented groups are being enrolled in these pathways, because at least now with the legislation, we have equal playing field that everyone's going to have at least one course. But as Kelly said, we're wanting students to continue into year 2 and year 3 of cyber. And, I'm wanting students to go into higher ed programs for cyber. So when we look at that, we want to make sure that those programs, we're seeing more girls and women going in, as well as students of color. And then in our state, a big problem with access is also our rural communities and the high poverty rural communities in the Delta region of our state, especially, where it's really a desert and when it comes to business, industry, education level. And often that's where more high minority population is. So that is a metric that we're looking at, is increasing the number of underrepresented students in the advanced courses.
I think that's absolutely a vital part of the equation, right, when it comes to raising the workforce up and also socioeconomic impact.
I actually don't have that problem at my school. We are a Title I school, which means that over 98% of our student population has free or reduced lunch. And we are predominantly people of color. In fact, I have entire cohorts that don't have a white student in them, but we are predominantly male. And so we are working on getting women into the field. We've been being asked to get a cyber patriots team of women, which is 4, and I only have 2. So, it's really hard to get girls interested in it, especially at that age. So.
That's one reason I think that the graduation requirement is so important, because I do feel like for a lot of our young ladies or our children or our students of color may not ever give it a chance. And by having that requirement of 1 year, I believe that we're gonna have several students that find that I'm successful in this, that I'm motivated by this, but may, because it was an elective, may have never considered it. And I say that in part because when I was an engineering teacher, I saw that happen with a student that had a schedule change, an issue with the schedule. He ends up in my engineering course and decided he wanted to be an engineer. So sometimes, I know that we're not all of them are going to decide to go into computer science or cybersecurity, but I do believe that there are some of those students that we will reach by having that requirement now.
Well, I think all of that kind of sums up a part of the equation, and then you are at different levels of that problem, the continuity, right? Well, probably touch upon one thing before we close is the involvement of parents and probably PTAs and all. We have actually a couple of students here whose parents just decided having an unexcused absence is okay, and then they drove all the way from Frisco and, down here, and I couldn't do that for my son. Last time we had an unexcused absence, and he spoke at the summit, and he was very eager to come back. But the school system, they wanted to, but they couldn't just make it happen. Have you thought about that? And I would like to see both perspectives as to where things are like involvement of parents in this or parent-teacher organizations in this PTAs. Have you given thought to that?
So as far as involvement with parents, it's a lot. Tina mentioned this, that making them aware. That's something that we still work towards, is making sure that they understand the importance of and what this is. Because, if you say computer science, that doesn't always mean, much to the parents and the community in our rural areas. So that is part of what we do even with our teachers, is try to help them reach out to community in their areas to help educate parents and make sure that they see the importance for their students. We, of course, we have bigger campaigns there to try to do that, but sometimes just having that person locally, sometimes the teacher going out and saying this is important for your child is as powerful as anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I was just going to say, we recently had a Girls in Cyber event that my counterpart Sandra out there helped lead, and we had a panel of young women who are pursuing cybersecurity careers, and one of them was still in high school, two of them were in college, and one is a working professional. But of the one that's in high school and one that's in college, both of them, when we asked them the question of, so what led you to be interested in cybersecurity? And we didn't know what their answers would be beforehand, and the two of them both said, my dad, because their dads were into she's like, I have computers all in my garage ever since I was a little kid. And it's like that role that parents play. And we know that that's such a small amount of students. So it just goes to show how important that parent role is and the impact of parents. And I do think that we can do a better job of bringing that to parents' attentions. Like Kelly said, they're not aware of those opportunities, and they don't understand what the future of cybersecurity and how important that's going to be in our workforce.
And I hope that improves over time, like parents' understanding of this. Okay, and your closing thoughts.
I believe that we need a lot of parent support, and you have a lot of areas of poverty in my school. The thing that has seemed to work is letting parents know that their kids can have a completely different life than what they had, a different lifestyle, a higher level of education, that it's not like a continuing cycle that they believe it is, and that we're offering it for free. So with all of those things, usually our parents are on board. It's reaching out and getting the other parents that don't know about it, that I feel is a big challenge. We have key techs all over our school, all over our district. Other districts have them, North Side has them, Northeast Side has them, and yet we still have problem drawing 120 students a year. So to me, it's really getting the information out there and everybody talking about that there are all these opportunities for students. If there was something like this when I was in school, I would have loved it. There weren't computers when I was in school, but it's okay. Well, there were, just not ones that you could carry around.
I think we got, at least we got getting to a stage where we are able to recognize the problem. Education is always a long-term investment, especially K-12, right? Because you just can't put them to work. And it's that long-term investment which I think we are all investing in, right? Our time, energy, and resources. So again, thank you for coming together for this panel and sharing your experiences. I think we have a pretty broad representation of where things are and different resources that we can draw upon. So anything that we can do from a CFF side, happy to help support that. But most importantly, I think getting your message out and the work that you're doing out to the community was very important for us. And thank you for giving us that opportunity. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to speak.
Of course, thank you. Well, did it. You got to the end of the day, and with a very, very important topic. So again, there are drinks and snacks out there. Please go enjoy yourself. You earned it. Straight there from 7 in the morning to almost 5 o'clock. So thank you so much, and please don't forget to come same time tomorrow early. We have another very strong agenda tomorrow, starting with another lessons learned from Ukraine. So there is a Ukrainian telecom company that we have been working on. If you heard about the Skylink, supporting the Ukraine, how it came about, that story we have it. We'll share with you in the morning, and then we'll have Mayor Nuremberg join us, and then a series of really exciting topics that will probably take away, and you can think about it over the weekend and subsequently work on it. So, but thank you again for staying with us through the day, and I hope it was as useful for us, for you as it has been for us. Again, see you tomorrow. 7:30 we start breakfast, 8:30 we start the program. Thank you. Have a good rest of the evening.